Hey guys, happy Wednesday. I hope everybody's doing really well out there. Monday, we took a look at how to install Dock Starter on a Raspberry Pi, and that video is doing really well, and I'm stoked. Honestly, I was afraid that it was going to be too much of a deviation from what I've been doing with Open Media Vault, that sort of thing. But you guys really hit that video hard, and I really appreciate everybody who took a look there. I also said in that video, if there was any interest, that I would make a follow-up video showing how to install Traefik on a Raspberry Pi, and I saw some interest, so that's what we're going to take a look at today. So with all that being said, let's jump over to my desktop and take a look. Okay, so here we are on my desktop, and here is basically everything that we installed while we were taking a look at installing Dock Starter. I will say that I did change a couple of things. I removed a few things that I knew I wasn't ever going to use. One of them that I would use, but I didn't like that version of it. So we're going to take a look at installing a Cloudflare DNS updater as well. I also installed MStream just because I know it was in there. Again, I wasn't real thrilled with the way it was installed by Dock Starter, so I just removed a couple of things, added a couple of things. Because this is Portainer, it runs just like it does on Open Media Vault, so it's super easy to use Dock Starter as a way to jump off and then use Portainer and Docker just like you would in any other circumstance. So I really dig how easy this is to use. With all that being said, there's a first couple of things we're going to need to do in order to get Traefik set up. Now, I know a lot of people like to use Let's Encrypt to manage their SSLs and that sort of thing, and that's great. It just isn't how I like to do things. So I like to use Cloudflare both for my DNS management and a bit of security on my IP addresses, as well as letting them manage my SSLs between the browser and Cloudflare. So with all that being said, there's a couple of things we've got to do. First, we need to make sure that, first off, that we've got ports 80 and 443 forwarded to our Raspberry Pi. This is going to happen on your modem or your router, whatever you've got in there. You've got one or both. You may have a modem and router combo. If that's the case, you can just do this once. If you've got a modem and a separate router, you'll have to forward ports 80 and 443 from your router to your modem, and then you'll have to log into your modem and forward those two ports to your Raspberry Pi. I'm just showing this just to say that I did. There are too many different routers and modems and all those different things out there for me to make a comprehensive video to cover all of the different possibilities. Just know that you will need those two ports forwarded from your router to your modem if you've got one, and then to your Raspberry Pi. So now we can close that. The other thing that we need to do is set up a domain name. You can purchase a domain name just about anywhere these days. I'm a big fan of using Porkbun, though. This video is not sponsored by them. They don't know I'm making this video. But I like to use Porkbun because their domains are cheap, and they include privacy on your domain names. So if you purchase a domain name, somebody can look it up, and if you go through like GoDaddy, by default, all your contact information, your address, your phone number, your email address, all of that is public information. Porkbun is really cool because even with their cheap domain prices, they include privacy that doesn't allow people to just look that information up. So I really do encourage you to check out Porkbun for domains. Once you've got a domain set up, you're also going to need a Cloudflare account, and you'll need to point your domain to Cloudflare from wherever you bought your domain. There are lots of tutorials out there on how to do that. In fact, Cloudflare's got really good tutorials that shows how to do that on most of the major providers. So definitely check those out. The reason I'm showing this is because you'll need an A record set up for your primary domain. That will have your IP address here. You can see that I've got that blurred out. That's because that's my home IP address, and I don't want you to see that. Because the whole point of using Cloudflare is so that you can't find my IP address even if you ping my domain. If you do ping one of my domains, it's going to show you a 104 dot something IP. That's Cloudflare, that's not me. So that's why I like to use Cloudflare, is it obfuscates the IP address. It makes a little bit safer of a connection there. So and of course, you have to have that proxied in order for that to be the case. If you don't have that proxied, your IP address will be transparent and everybody can see it, so use a proxy there. Below that, I've got a CNAME set up with an asterisk. That's a wildcard. That allows me to set up any domain name that I want on my server, and they will all automatically point to whatever my domain name is pointed to. So I've got an asterisk there, and then my domain name in the content. And this will again allow me to have any domain pointed to my server, any subdomain from dbtechyt.com will just automatically point to my server without any issues. Again, you want to make sure that that is proxied. The other thing we want to take a look at here is the SSL, which I've actually already got pulled up. Nope, I lied. We're going to pull that up over here. This is the SSL. I've got this set to flexible because I don't have an SSL installed on my server. If I did, I could use full, but for right now, I'm just using flexible. You can adjust that as you see fit. Just know that it will require you to install an SSL on your server. So with all of that being out of the way, now we can get to the good stuff. And that's actually installing Traefik. Of course, that's why we're here. So what I'm going to do is open PuTTY. I'm going to go ahead and bring that up here. And of course, that's going to be cantankerous. So let's do like that. And of course, on port 22. And I'm going to bring this up. And because we're on a Raspberry Pi, we're using Raspbian as our base operating system. Our username is going to be Pi. And our password is Raspberry. So we can go ahead and do that. And here you can see that we're logged in. So let me do an ls just to see what's going on there. I'm actually going to do an rmrf Traefik. Oh, right, because let me do a sudo. Oh, if I could type. There we go. Now there's nothing there. I was playing with this earlier to make sure it would work. I almost stuck my foot in my mouth. I wasn't actually sure if Traefik would work on a Raspberry Pi when I said that in Monday's video. So I did some testing and it does work. So what we're going to do first, I'm going to do a clear screen here. First thing we're going to do a sudo su. That's just going to allow us to just do everything as root rather than having to type in a password or any of that kind of stuff. So now we're just doing everything as sudo or as root. So now we can do an mkdir. We're going to do Traefik like that. And then we're going to cd into Traefik. And then in here, we're going to create two files. The first one is going to be a dynamic, we're going to say nano dynamic.yaml. And we're just going to go ahead and paste some stuff in here like this. All of this will be available in the blog post linked in the description down below. So don't worry about if I'm not reading all of this to you, you can't catch it, whatever. There will be a link to a blog post in the description where you can follow along with this. So now that we've got this, we're just going to do a Control-O, Enter, Control-X. Now we've saved that file and we can move on to the next file. That's all we needed to do for that dynamic.yaml file. So the next one that we need to do is a docker compose.yml. So we're going to do nano docker compose.yml. And again, we're going to paste this in here. And I'm going to go ahead and make this big, or bigger rather, so that we can kind of take a, let's minimize that. So that we can take a look at some of this. I'm not going to explain a lot of this because I've already explained it in one video on how to set up Traefik on Open Media Vault. Also, again, this will all be available in the notes or in the blog post linked in the description. And if you look, there are notes after each and every one of these lines explaining what it does. So I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail here. Just know that we're going to, these lines are just a basic, let's start a Docker container. Below that, we've got, the ports we're going to use. Port 80 is going to be for HTTP, 443 is going to be for HTTPS, and 8080 is going to be so that we can look at our Traefik dashboard. That's what those are for. Here we're saying allow this to run insecure. That's true. If you wanted to, you could set that to false, but that may throw a wrench into the works, depending on how you got your SSL set up on your server, if you decide to go that route. The dashboard, we can say true. This is Again, that's what's on port 8080. We're going to take a look at that once it's installed. But if somebody ever finds your dashboard, they can then also see all of your other subdomains that are on that dashboard. So maybe after you get this set up, you switch that to false once you're verified that everything is working. And then basically it's just saying, hey, we're going to use the web network. We haven't created that yet, but we're going to in just a moment. Below that, we're going to use the Docker socket. We're going to import the, we're going to mount the YAML file, that dynamic YAML file that we made. The networks we're going to use is web. Below that, we're going to enable traffic. We're going to say that this will show up on, well, at this point, oops. Let me get down to there. That's an old domain name that I've used in other videos. But we could use monitor.dbtech.site.com, and with that, it would show up on the. If somebody were to go to monitor.dbtechsite.com, or no, sorry, dbtechyt.com. Sorry, new domain name, still not completely familiar with it. Don't have it memorized. So monitor.dbtechyt.com will show my dashboard to the general public if they find it. And then below that, we're just saying, hey, this line right here is only for traffic, the traffic dashboard. So that's just all that's for. And then over here, we're saying, hey, use the web network. So I think that pretty much explains enough to get you by. Again, you can read all of the notes that are attached to that if you decide to do that. So once we've got that, we can do Control O, Enter, and Control X. And now we have saved our Docker compose.yml file. And the next thing we need to do is actually create a web or network named web. So what we'll do is say Docker network create web, click Enter. So it's gone ahead and done that. Now, all we've got to do is type in Docker compose up -d and hit Enter. So now it's going to go through the process of creating traffic. Now, I already did this once and I forgot to clear it out. It should have gone through a process of pulling a bunch of files and whatnot, and then extracting them, that sort of thing. So that will definitely take you a couple of minutes probably the first time you run it. But I already ran it, so it went pretty quick this time. So then what we should be able to do then is go, to monitor.dbtechyt.com. And just like that, there is our dashboard. So we've got traffic set up. Here you can see that we've just got monitor.dbtechyt.com running on here right now. So the next thing we want to do is we're going to add another Docker application that we've got set up in here. The one I like to use here is called MStream. This is just a music streaming service so that you can stream your music from basically anywhere. So what we've got to do is just go and open this up, click on duplicate and edit. Then we're going to scroll down over here to labels, and we're going to create 4 labels. So let me grab my notes, wherever the heck I put those. There they are. And I will explain these. So like I said, we're going to create 4 of these and 4. So we'll go ahead and paste, go ahead and paste that in. So the first thing we're saying here is traffic enabled. We want that to be true. The next thing is the entry point, which is going to be web. We're telling it to use the web network. Then after that, this line is going to tell traffic which domain name to use. So if somebody goes to, that's not right. Let's say music. If somebody goes to music.dbtechyt.com, then it will forward all that traffic to go to this MStream container. So this is just telling traffic what container to point to, depending on what URL is entered into the address bar. All right, and the last one that we're going to add here is going to be on port 3000. That's the port that this runs on. Sometimes you don't need to do that. Sometimes you do. I just like to put it in there to just to remove any possible complications. Now, the one thing I will say here is that all of these I pulled from another container on another server, and you can see that Bitwarden is in these 3. And that's not going to work. We want that to be MStream. As long as each different container has a different name in there, it'll work fine. If you ever duplicate one, neither one will work until you fix it. So that's all we've got to do there. So we've got Traefik enabled. We're saying use the web network. We're saying use music.dbtechyt.com, and we're saying use port 80. Now the other thing we need to do is go over here to network and select web, and then click on deploy the container and click replace. So then I should be able to come over here to music.dbtechyt.com. There we go. And now we can log in, oops, like that. And we've got some music in here that I'm not going to play for copyright reasons. But you can see that it's working. Honestly, there's going to be a weird couple of edits in there probably because I originally set that to port 80. It should have been port 3000. I've got no excuse. I had coffee this morning. Just having a brain fog moment there. So there you go. Let's see if we can do another one of these. So we've got Traefik. We've got monitor.dbtechyt.com up and running. We've got MStream. I tell you what, while we're at it, let's also do, let's do Grossy here. And that's going to be on port 80. So let's do this. We're going to go ahead and click on duplicate and edit. Again, the first thing we can do here is change the network to web. Then we'll go to environments and we're going to add, or sorry, labels. We're going to add 4 labels just so that we can make sure that we know what we're doing after that last little fiasco there. And we're just going to paste in these 4 lines like we did before. And one more like so. And this one we're going to say again, oops, the enable should be true. The entry points should be web. This one is going to be like that, but I want to change the URL here like so. I'm actually going to delete all of that. I'm going to call it Grossy, just like so. And then this will be port 80. That's what it likes to run on. And again, remember that we've got to change this label right in here where it says Bitwarden. We need to change that to whatever the name of the container is. You can name it whatever you want. I just use the name of the container so I don't have to try to think about it. I just know what each thing should be. So with all that being said, now we've got our network set to web. All that should be good to go. So we can click on deploy, click replace. Give that a second to deploy there. It's thinking. All right, so that's going. Now let's take a look. Looks like that's doing its thing. So now let's change music. Oops. To, oops. See if I can type. Holy cow. Oh, it is still thinking, it looks like. Oops, let's come back over to here. Yeah, config executing. So it is still thinking about what it's going to do there. Here in a minute, it should say something like services.d complete or something. And that's how we'll know that that's ready to go. All right, just wanted to make sure Traefik picked that up. And right there is grossy.dbtechyt.com. So again, we're just waiting on this to do its thing here. No, still waiting. Now, the one thing I can say, at least, especially with Grossy, I guess, is that because we're on an ARM processor instead of what we've been using, which was an x86 Intel processor, it's going to be a little slower. That's just kind of one of the burdens you've got to bear when you're dealing with lower end hardware like a Raspberry Pi 4. While I get it, it's a huge step up from the Raspberry Pi 3. It's still kind of a downgrade from, again, the Intel processor that we've been using on my previous set of videos. Okay, I tell you what, while we're waiting for that to think about what it's going to do, there's one other thing that we need to do, and that is create a container on our Raspberry Pi in our Docker containers that will update Cloudflare if your IP address happens to change. So let's go ahead and do that next. I'm going to go ahead and go over here to stacks. I'm going to create a new stack. And here's what I will say. There was a Cloudflare DNS container that was available through DocStarter. It involved more information than this one needed, and I'm lazy, so I'm just going to use this one from OSNU. And so I'm just going to go ahead and give it a name here real quick. Go ahead and paste that in there. And then what we can do is come over to Cloudflare. We'll come up to the top right and we'll go to my profile. Then we're going to go to API tokens, and we're going to create a new token here. So we're going to create a custom token. We're going to get started this way. And we're going to say Raspberry Pi doc starter, like that. So we're actually going to have 3 of these permissions here. They're all going to be set to zone, like so. The first one will be zone settings. The second one will be just zone. And the third one will be DNS. And then we're going to come over here. We're going to say read on the first 2 and edit on the last one. We're going to say include all zones. And that should be everything we need to do here in order to generate our key. So we'll go ahead and click on that. And we'll click or create token. And we're going to go ahead and copy that. We'll come over to Portainer. And we're going to paste that in there. And then we'll say deploy the stack. Now you also want to make sure that you put your domain name in here for the zone, and you can put a subdomain in there if you want to. I don't know if it's necessary, but I put one in anyway. All right, so now let's go back to our containers. Let's make sure that this is running. Services.d is done, so that's good. So now let's go back over here to Grossi and see if it's doing anything. Hey, it looks like that's done, so I should be able to refresh. And there we go. Now grossi.dbtechyt.com is working. Okay guys, there you go. There's how to set up Traefik on a Raspberry Pi. A pretty simple process, very similar to how to set it up on an x86 platform, but I know it's always good to have a video for each platform just to alleviate any kind of confusion. So I know this was kind of a long video, but we set up Traefik, we pointed domains to it, we set up a couple of different applications on it, so I really wanted to kind of dig in there and show you how to do it on multiple things here and kind of hopefully alleviate some confusion on the different labels and how to set those labels up. So I hope you found the video helpful. If you did, do me a favor, give the video a thumbs up. Would really help me out a bunch, and I would really be thankful for that. If you enjoy these kinds of videos, I know we've been doing Open Media Vault for a long time, but I have shifted gears a little bit. Now we're focusing more on Raspberry Pi, but that doesn't mean we won't do other platforms in the future. And if you enjoy these types of videos, definitely get subscribed. I've got lots of new content coming out 3 times a week, most weeks, and so you won't want to miss that if you're interested in this kind of stuff. Again, like I said earlier, all of everything you'll need to know will be in the blog post linked in the description down below. While you're down there in the description, there's also a couple of links where you can find ways to support the channel. There's an Amazon affiliate store. There is a coffee link for a one-time tip. There's Patreon if you want to become a patron over there with a couple of different levels that you can subscribe at. The $5 and $10 levels will give you access to a members-only Discord server where we can hang out and chat if you want to do that sort of thing. But with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up here. As always, thanks for your time. I always appreciate your support, and I'll talk to you in the next video.